From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Open Line.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Open Line. Glad you're with us tonight on a Wednesday night. It's Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021. We're talking all about Metro Schools tonight. Metro Schools announced they are going back to in-person learning. Getting out of virtual learning. Well, not fully out of virtual learning. We'll discuss all of that. And there's so many questions you may have. This is a good chance for you to call in with your questions. Happy to have via Zoom, as all of our guests are, Christiane Buggs. She is the Metro School Board Chair. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm excited to be able to offer clarification or just give information to the community. So,
yeah, this is a good opportunity to speak one-on-one, school board chair, about where things stand. There's so much going on. This announcement was certainly greatly anticipated. Why? I guess I'll just start with why now? Why are you going back in, and kind of what was the thought behind it?
Sure. That's kind of a loaded question, but I'll try to offer as succinct a response as possible. But when conversations began with the COVID task force and with the mayor and even Dr. Hildreth from Meharry or the public health department, we kind of landed on this 7 numbers, this on the metric scale.
That's not good. We're having
metrics like the positivity rates per day.
Well, this is very important because there are going to be so many people that want to hear this. Well, it's breaking up. Somehow you're breaking up. Now I can hear you.
Goodness.
Let's see. If we need to take a break, we'll come right back. But let's see. All right, now I see you. This is Zoom. This is live Zoom. So, okay, I guess kind of start back again. Let's just start from the top. Why are you going back now? How did that decision happen?
So it really was a citywide decision. I mean, we made it in conjunction with the mayor, with the public health department, with Dr. Hildreth and Meharry, and we landed on 7, on that COVID tracker that takes into account so many different metrics around the city each day, that we decided that 7 would be at least a reasonable and more fairly comfortable time or position to put us in to allow for that gradual transition back into the in-person space. So we hit 6.8, I believe, last Friday, and we said that if we maintain that below 7 number between that time and Monday, that we would go ahead and begin transitioning this Thursday. So it's us trying to offer as much transparency as possible and trying to make sure we remain true to our word. And since we've made this in collaboration with other stakeholders, other community members, we thought it was best to follow what we had said, what we suggested from the beginning. And so as long as we maintain positivity rates and new case numbers that are below that 7 for the citywide metrics, then we'll continue the phasing process.
Are schools ready? They've been out for a long time. Middle schools and high schools have really been out for a long time. K through 4, they went in for a little bit. Are schools ready?
Yes. So that infusion of federal dollars we get, that ESSER or that stimulus check that we got, we used to prep as best we could for that transition back to in-school or in-person learning. We are going to give our teachers an in-service day or an asynchronous learning day so that they can go into school buildings and prep their classrooms and themselves be made as comfortable as possible. But I think the thing that we've all been worried about, the thing that we've all been watching for, is vaccines. So since we don't have vaccines, or we haven't been able to prioritize our teachers to get the vaccines yet, I think that's where we are holding our breath the most. We're anxiously awaiting that, and then we'll feel much more comfortable about sending our families, our students, our staff back into the classroom.
How different do you think school will look? When kids go back into school, how different will that experience be?
To be honest, it depends on the school. As much as we are trying to push forward, encourage equity in our neighborhoods and even in our schools, we know that inequity still exists based on different demographics, race, affluence, proximity to resources. And so part of it will be how underfunded or understaffed was the school before the pandemic hit, and how has that impacted the school building? Does that school require a lot of subs? Will there be enough classrooms to spread out more robustly and more efficiently to make sure that we can try our best to meet those social distance protocols? So I think we'll see a lot of what we saw in the beginning of the year, what we saw in the fall with our transition from K through 4 back to in-person learning. There will be some measure of masks and temperature checks and students taking the vaccine or at least getting rapid tests as they need to or as they show signs for it.
Is that then a decision made by each principal at each school? In other words, is it mandated that kids have to wear masks, students have to wear masks? Is that coming from the school board, or does that come from each principal?
No, that's a district-wide decision. So we are encouraging, not just encouraging masks, but mandating masks or some kind of face covering unless a student has a note with that explains some reason why they should have an accommodation not to wear a mask.
Oh boy. All right. Well, that'll be interesting. And then what about temperature checks? Is that based on, you said there's some things that'll be different based on funding. Has Metro paid to have something take temperature for every child that comes in, or is that again just in certain schools that can buy that through their PTO?
No, so that's a great question. So that's again district-wide. Just how it looks will be different. So in some schools they'll allow for more than one entrance, and at each entrance you'll be your temperature will be taken and you'll be signed in. In some schools, they'll only manage one entrance. And so it just depends on, how many staff they have that are available to help speed up the process when students get to school, make sure that we're moving through the lines efficiently and making sure the students are moving quickly to their classroom and not stopping anywhere else in the hallway. So those kind of things will be a bit different just in how students transition into the building and throughout the day. But some of the district-wide issues that we've touched on are the mask being mandated, face coverings, the testing, always having sanitizer on hand, and then encouraging rapid tests when students show signs or symptoms.
Something we're hearing here at the station is from parents who apparently they elected to have their child go virtually back when they were told to do that. And I don't remember exactly when that was, but it was earlier. They were told to make a decision. Should we go back in? Do you want your child to be in person, or do you want it to be virtual? You had to make a choice. They want to change that choice now. Can parents change that choice now that Metro has decided to go back in?
I'll say our decision in the fall is what we'd hoped to be able to maintain, is that you would not be able to change your decision. We understand that puts a lot of families in precarious situations or comfortable and fortunate situations. And so we're trying as best we can to work with them or work with different families to make accommodations for their students. But we also understand that there's a number of staff that have accommodations that call for them not to go back into the classroom until they have the vaccine. So that it changes the efficacy for each school, because if a number of teachers at one school have already opted into virtual learning and they have the accommodations that mandate that they be virtually and not be back in school or back in person, then that affects the number of students we can bring back into the classroom, or the number of students who can remain virtual. So part of it is just the logistics, being able to manage all of the diverse needs of all 81,000 students and making sure that none of them slip through the cracks with the staff ratios. But then the other part of it is, us encouraging or having conversations to see what we can do to better support families and see if there might be another time for them to select. How
is staffing going to look when we come back? I know that when the elementary school was in, there were concerns about there's kids that are having to quarantine and work, teachers that are having to quarantine, and it's very difficult to find subs, and staffing was an issue. How does staffing look as you go back in now?
I'll be as frank as I can. It will continue to be an issue. Even though we've been planning for and have been ready for and, have been, almost excited to see the metrics go down so that our students can be back in person. This is what we've been planning for. We also know that this is going to be difficult. We have a hybrid model. We have some of our staff and students that will be in person in buildings and some that won't, and it'll be hard to manage quarantining. And so again, this goes back to the individual school scenarios, because if a school is already understaffed and they were never able to get a third grade teacher, then those issues will only be exacerbated and the inequities will increase because we're kind of forcing an in-person space for some students and maintaining virtual for others. So I think we'll see some of the same issues we saw in the fall, and hopefully we won't lose any staff.
Mm-hmm. What are you hearing from teachers? Are they 100% okay with this, or what are you hearing from teachers about going back right now?
I think there are mixed reviews. You have some teachers who have been able to already begin the vaccination process by going to other counties, and so they feel a bit less leery. You have some teachers who have seemed to have felt comfortable from the beginning, that they would be able to manage the safety protocols, and they were ready to go back to in person even in the fall. But then you do have some that continue to be nervous, and they're likely upset or at least frustrated. Just that's what the pandemic has done to many of us. In the community, you have some that are extremely leery about going out in public at all, and some who are more ready to. So I think we'll see that with our staff.
What has this done? What has this done to the number of students in metro schools? I mean, how many students have we lost, either to private school or that I guess aren't showing up virtually? What are the numbers? In other words, how many students were enrolled at the start of or the middle of last year before all this happened, and how many are enrolled right now?
Sure. Another great question. So we had 85,000 students registered in March of 2020. We now have about 81,000 students enrolled. All right, hold on one second, darling. What we saw was that a lot of our pre-K students, sorry about that, I have an anxious toddler over here, but our 3-year-olds, our 3- and 4-year-old classrooms, those pre-K classes, I think we had heard from a lot of parents that they felt uncomfortable paying for the pre-K class, but being virtual. So we lost a lot of those students and are hoping that they'll come back for kindergarten. But I know we lost a number of students to private schools, but we don't have a clue as to how many. We have certainly heard some that have threatened to leave or that are wanting to stay, but want to be in person more than anything. So I know we've lost a number of students in those early grades, but when we saw after the tornado at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of students who went missing just because of losing housing, because of parents losing work, cell phones being cut off. And so I think I've been really heartened to see the collaborative effort in the community and to see everyone kind of rally behind teachers. I mean, we had our central office staff, we had principals, we had teachers, we had maintenance workers who were going around knocking on doors, and some of our, we use heat maps to try to determine where some of our students hang out the most, where their families might congregate when funds are low. And so we've been kind of knocking doors to try to touch those students, but we really are leaning on other community members to help us find any other students or families that have been lost, that are still in Davidson County and that need our resources, because not only are we looking to educate children on basic content like reading, writing, and arithmetic, but we're also feeding students twice a day. We're trying to make sure that we're connecting their families to resources so that okay, baby, I'll get you some chips. We're trying to connect families to all the resources they need.
All right, I'm going to let you go to, we'll go to break. I want to clarify that number. It was 85,000 at the start, and now we're at 81,000. Is that right?
Yes.
So
that was my last
about a rough estimate. Okay, why don't we take a break, and you can. Boy, you've got a lot on your plate. So you take care of some things there. We'll take a break and come back, and we'll start taking calls. If you want to call in, there's the number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. We'll take a break. Be back right after this.